What can you tell us about what these new phones will look like?
First of all, I think Gene's more of a superstar than an all-star, just another tier up. But what do we know about them? We know there'll be 3 phones. They're all going to look like the iPhone 10. They're all going to have Face ID. There's going to be 2 high-end OLED models, 1 lower-end LCD model that comes in several colors. Should be appealing to people upgrading from previous year's iPhones, perhaps the iPhone 6 or 7, or people coming from the iPhone 5 or iPhone SE. So it should be a big upgrade for them, but if you're coming from an iPhone 10 from last year, not a lot to see here new this year.
Gene, is this a smart decision for Apple?
Yeah, it is. We're just, by the way, following Mark's reporting here on this and done a great job on it. But yes, it's a smart decision. The reason why is that what they're trying to do is really inch up ASPs. And the street's looking for flat ASPs in 2019 over 18, so at 745. But this, if you just kind of look at the math, the most high-end phone, the one that's going to be about 25% bigger than the current iPhone 10, is probably going to start close to $1,200. And so you kind of pool all of this together, and what you come out with is an ASP of probably $830, $840 at its peak, and the last peak was just under $800. So that's a big deal, and I just want to also point out that this is yet another step in them broadening out the product line. The lowest iPhone starts at $350. Now we're going to have the most expensive one with the higher capacity is going to be $1,300.
Well, you know, and Mark, do you think Apple will continue to make the now lower priced iPhones, that older design, which, you know, a lot of people are actually more familiar with? The iPhone 10, you know, you have to have new, it's new behavior in order to actually get used to that phone.
That's a good question. I would look at the iPhone 7 specifically. This is the device that came out in September of 2016. I would be pretty unsurprised if they kept that around, dropped the price between $50 and $100, and made that the new low-end iPhone, replacing maybe the iPhone SE. That's something to pay attention to as well.
So talk to us, Mark, about the colors. What are the options?
The colors are fun. What are the options? So we're told that for the 2 OLED phones, obviously they'll continue to offer gray and silver. They've been working on gold. They've been having some trouble getting the gold color working correctly, so perhaps we'll see that at a later update, perhaps next year, or maybe they'll have it ready for this year. On the cheaper models, we're likely to see those 3 main colors, so the gold, gray, and the white/silver, but also sort of a blue color and perhaps a red color as well. So a little bit more color this time around on the low-end phones.
So, Gene, what kind of growth are you looking for then over the next year? We had Pierre Farragut of New Street Research on last week who expects 2019 to be a really disappointing year for the iPhone. Would you agree?
No, I think it's going to be kind of this 0 to 5% growth, and the emphasis here is on stability and visibility of the iPhone franchise. And that's a shift to how we've thought about the Apple story since the iPhone came out. It's always been about the excitement going in and then the inevitable anxiety as we get into the throes of a product cycle about what the tail looks like. I think we're shifting away from that, Emily, and I'll just point out there's one kind of easy way that we can see if, in fact, investors are starting to be more comfortable with a kind of 0 to 5% iPhone growth. And the answer is look at the stock action after they announced the iPhones. The stock has been moving up more recently, and in part in anticipation of what Mark's reporting here, but also this is typical in any given year. If it holds its gains, because usually it sells off, I think that's a sign that investors are okay with that slow kind of 0 to 5%. As long as it's growing, investors are going to be fine.
So let's say it's closer to 0%. Then where does the growth come from? Is it services? Is it the purchasing of Apple Music and apps on the iPhone?
Well, part of it is services. Obviously, we spend a lot of time thinking about that. This other piece that's getting kind of the layers are getting peeled back right now is around ASPs, and so we should see higher ASPs that we just talked about. So you can have, let's say, 0 to 5% unit growth, but with the ASPs, you get to a higher revenue growth number, and then those two capture probably about 80% or so of Apple's revenue. And you know, the other X factor, the thing that can get investors exciting, obviously, is the cash that they're going to be returning. We think they're going to be returning cash at twice the pace that investors think over the next 2.5 years. And so that's another X factor. And don't forget about autonomy, and there's other things that they're working on too. So there's a lot, even though the stock is at all-time highs, a lot of reason for optimism going into those what seem to be slow iPhone growth numbers.
So, Mark, aside from these new iPhones, what else are you expecting to see in September?
Well, not necessarily September, but across September, October, November would be obviously the 3 phones, plus a revamped Apple Watch with a larger, nearly edge-to-edge screen, as well as new higher-end iPads coming a little bit later, faster processors, an Apple graphics card, as well as Face ID and the iPhone X interface from last year finally coming to the iPad line.